When you hear the name Warren Buffett, it's likely you think of one of the most famous investors in the world, the fifth richest person on the planet with a net worth of over $100 billion, or the owner of Berkshire Hathaway. Despite this impressive track record, what most people don't know about him is that he's an extremely frugal person with an incredible financial mindset. While most frugal tips are pretty basic, there are certain underlying factors that can actually keep you poor and broke. The truth is that money doesn't just grow from nothing, even after you start earning. You need to have good money habits, invest wisely, and always make sure it's working for you as opposed to you working for it. This is especially the case for younger people who are just starting their lives and probably don't have very much saved up. Good money habits will let you have a prosperous financial future without stress or anxiety. On the other hand, those who don't practice good money habits will experience a lot of stress in their lifetimes. Worst of all, usually it doesn't show up until it actually matters, which is around retirement. So, to help you avoid this, I'm going to share Warren Buffett's 10 destructive money habits that will keep you broke and poor. Number 10. Paying a lot for taxes. Every citizen is required to pay taxes. The saying goes that the only two things guaranteed in life are paying death and paying taxes. Sadly, taxes can be a huge burden on many people and families, especially if they're very high. Some people do try to avoid paying taxes, but it's not really a good idea considering that it's illegal to do so. Fortunately, there are ways to lower your taxes, making it easier to pay every year. As a start, make sure that you're using tax-advantaged savings accounts. Some examples are a 401k or an IRA. Generally, whatever is earned in this account is non-taxed. Secondly, you can itemize deductions, which can be especially helpful if you have a business. Otherwise, you can use mortgage interest, medical expenses, or even donations to charity to help you lower your taxes. Thirdly, you may just be struggling to pay your taxes doing all of the above. If that's the case, you can negotiate a payment plan with the IRS to make it easier for you, like during this financially difficult time. Number 9. You don't have a financial plan. The chances are that you don't have a financial plan. In fact, a survey done by Schwab's in 2021 said that less than 1/3 of Americans have a financial plan. But what exactly is a financial plan and why is it important? Well, you've likely heard that having a plan is key to success for pretty much anything you do in life. When it comes to finances, you want to have a path that you can follow so you make the best choices with your money, both in the short term and the long term. Without a plan, it becomes much easier to fall into debt or to just spend more money on things you don't really need. At worst, this can lead to issues with your retirement or having issues paying off emergency expenses. Typically, a written financial plan is your best bet to make sure every single dollar you earn goes exactly where you want it to go. Since this is a broad topic, let us know in the comments below if you want us to make a video on it. On top of that, be sure to see a financial advisor or planner to get the best possible results. Number 8. You don't diversify your investments. One of the worst things you can do when it comes to investing is to avoid diversification. Just to strengthen this point, the amazing investor, Warren Buffett, once said that it's a protection against ignorance. And in all fairness, every single person is ignorant of the future since we simply can't tell what's actually going to happen. With that in mind, making sure that your investments are diversified will keep you safe against any issues in the economy, like that which is happening now. If you just invested in stocks, you'd be hurting. But if you've invested in commodities as well, your losses would be offset by the gains in commodities. Since this is a very specific topic, make sure you speak to a qualified professional for investment advice. Number 7. Impulsive purchases. It's happened to all of us. You see an item that you want and without thinking about it, you swipe your finger and now you have it. While doing this once in a while isn't a problem, it becomes one when you do it frequently. Remember, planning is the key to success. So, planning your purchases will make sure that you're only buying what you need. However, this is easier said than done. People usually buy because it makes them feel good. That quick rush in itself is already addicting. but it can also help stave off bad feelings like anger or sadness. However, these are just quick fixes, but don't change the underlying problem. Not only that, but you lose money quickly. The best thing you can do is find better ways to find enjoyment in life and learn to discipline yourself with spending. Using a time filter is a great way to avoid impulse buys if you don't feel addicted to the feeling. On the other hand, if the feeling is too good for you to discipline, don't be afraid to seek help. Number 6. You don't track your spending. Another element of spending that keeps you poor is not tracking your spending. If you don't know what you're spending and how much you're spending, how can you expect to learn how to save money and become rich? There are two main things that tracking your spending helps with. The first is that you know how much you spend and whether it's above or below your income. And the second is that it helps you find the spending patterns that you may otherwise be unconscious of. When you find out your current status, you can easily make changes to fix any issues in your spending. A great way to keep track of your spending is to follow Warren Buffett's tip and get a ledger. If you want to avoid clutter, then use your phone and find one of the many apps available. Number 5. Inflated lifestyle. An inflated lifestyle is one of the easiest ways to throw away money and go into financial problems. When you start making more money by getting raises or having a side hustle, you're likely tempted to spend more. However, there's a major downside to this. Let's use an example to prove it. Imagine you make $50,000 a year and you spend about $40,000 of it. That means you live on about 80% of your income and save 20%. Not bad, right? Well, let's say you get a raise to $60,000, but instead of maintaining the 20% saving, you only save $50,000, which is 17%. It becomes pretty obvious how this can really become an issue as you keep getting more money. If you truly want to get rich, you need to maintain percentages. To do this, you can use the 50-30-20 rule. That's 50% of your income for housing expenses and bills, 30% of your wants and personal purchases, and 20% for savings. This will help you always stay on track no matter what your income is. Number 4. You try to live like your rich neighbors. This feeling is all too familiar to many of us. When you see that massive house at the end of the street or in another neighborhood nearby, the first thing you want to do is be like them. The worst part is that now with social media, it's become easier to see people who are absurdly rich and seem like spending money isn't a big deal. The big problem with that is that most incomes can't support a lifestyle like this over the long term without incurring tons of debt. The funny part is that many people who look rich are just like you. They live paycheck to paycheck and have tons of debt. The trick around this is to live your life and plan your financial goals for what you want. That means if you want that huge house at the end of the street, then you have to make sure you have enough money to sustain it. This means saving at least 10% of your income and avoiding debt at all costs. Before I continue, make sure to subscribe to Investors Weekly and like the video. It helps us out a lot. Number 3. You don't have an emergency fund. An emergency fund is one of the most crucial elements to avoid unnecessary money loss. Those without are setting themselves up for destroying any wealth they've built. Let's take a look at what Warren Buffett said about this. He said, "If you don't find a way to make money while you sleep, you'll work until you die." In other words, if you don't have an emergency fund that's growing and can protect you from losing money that works for you, then you'll never find true financial freedom. Unfortunately, life is full of accidents and emergencies, and most of the time, they cost a lot of money. So, having 3 to 6 months worth of expenses saved up can really save you from a lifetime of hurt and avoid totally derailing your finances. For example, imagine that you get into a car accident, your car gets totaled, and you need to go to the ER. While you may have insurance for your car, you need to pay for your ER trip, and if you don't have an emergency fund, you need to pay from your own pocket. If you're struggling, that means you're likely to go into debt, making your dream of financial freedom even more difficult. There's no good reason to not have an emergency fund, and any little bit counts. Something is better than nothing. So, if your excuse is that you can only put $5, then you're setting yourself up for trouble. Number 2. You don't budget. It's essential to track expenses, but it's also essential to make sure that you allocate your finances properly too. That means making sure that every single dollar you have left over gets put somewhere. For instance, if you've cut down your food bill by $50 a month, don't just leave that money in your bank account. This is a great opportunity to either save more money, like growing your emergency fund, or use it to pay off debt. Essentially, anytime you manage to save some extra money through budgeting, always give that money a job. Number 1. You don't have healthy money habits. Yep, it's super obvious, but it's a rather nuanced concept. There are a few things to consider when it comes to healthy money habits. The first is to look at the other side of the coin. Unhealthy habits are that you're not disciplined with spending, you don't budget, and this makes it easy to overspend and end up in debt. The second is to understand habits. Habits are routine behavior. In finance, it is what you do with your money on a regular basis. A healthy money habit would be making sure that you don't spend more than you earn and that you're constantly saving money. If we turn our attention to Warren Buffett, we can see a person who has excellent money habits. Not only is he one of the best investors of all time, but he's also really good at using his money in the best possible way. He's never had debt, never spends more than he needs to, and only ever buys what he really needs. To become like this, you'll need to identify your bad money habits with the previous tips in this video and develop good ones. When you've done this, you'll find your path to riches becomes much clearer and easier to walk.